opera singer. His you know, was most distinguished broadcasters, a man that you, I'm sure, remember very well, Bill Riley.
Yes.
So thank you for being with us for this session, and I'd like to begin by going to a tape that we recorded with Mr. Riley, broadcasting history interview that we did with him in 1999, and really a short excerpt from that.
Okay. All right.
Little boy in Centerville came to sing. He was 12, and I remember him specifically because he was of color. Mm-hmm. He was, and in Iowa, as I went all around the state, seldom would I see black children. There just weren't many in Iowa back then. So I remember this youngster, straight, wonderful little man, and he sang in a voice, a beautiful voice, soprano voice. And I remember he sang Little Jesus Boy. And it was great. And so I brought him in to the television show. And that was many years ago. And his name is Simon Estes.
And your name is Simon Estes.
Sounds like the same person.
How do you recall that moment in your life?
Well, I do. As Bill said, I sang the song Sweet Little Jesus Boy. And I was a boy soprano, and I was 12 years of age, so that means that was back in 1950. And I was very amazed at Bill Riley. As you may or may not know, I presented an award to Bill Riley just this year up in Mason City. And we hadn't seen each other for a few years, so I was also with him one time, not too many years ago, at the State Fair, the Iowa State Fair. And we were talking about the fact that there weren't many African Americans in the state of Iowa. I don't remember for sure, but maybe at that age, we probably had less than 20,000 African Americans in the whole state of Iowa, and most of them were concentrated in the Des Moines area. But I was from Centerville. But what I admired so much about Bill Riley is that in those days, let's face it, there were problems. There were sociological problems. But Bill Riley it didn't matter to him. He judged me on my talent. And that was, I think in a way, was a historical event taking place because there had been no African Americans that had been on his show. So he expressed what we call true patriotism. I mean, really true patriotism, that color didn't matter. He was just going on talent. So it was a wonderful experience for a 12-year-old boy. I mean, that was really something.
So you're a 12-year-old boy. You're a grandson of a slave, I believe, living in Centerville, where there was still a very relatively small community of African-American people. Mm-hmm. And you tried out for this talent scout show that Bill Riley was doing, and you did very well. And so he invited you then to come to Des Moines. Do you remember that?
Yes.
To be on the television program.
Yes.
Had you been to Des Moines before that?
I had been to Des Moines before because I had some relatives that lived in Des Moines on my mother's side, so I was familiar with Des Moines. But I think it was at the old KRNT Theater, I believe.
It would have been.
That was it then, yes.
And do you remember that part of the experience?
Yes, I certainly do.
Could you describe it?
The KRNT Theater probably looked as big as the Colosseum in Rome to me in those days, because when you're small, everything looked so huge. And I remember I walked in there and I saw all of these seats and this huge stage, because needless to say, it was larger than the stage at Centerville High School. So that was a new experience for me also. And just to be in the state capital, the capital, I mean the city of the capital of Iowa, that was really very major for me also. And it was a wonderful experience. I remember I saw the Capitol building when I came into Des Moines, and even though I'd seen it before, it had a very special meaning because at that young age, I'm sure I didn't realize all of the ramifications of this talent scout with Bill Riley. And as I became older, I realized how important that was. And that was one of my one of my first, let's say, public performances that I'd ever given.
How did that lead then to other opportunities for you? You were 12 years old at the time, and So you weren't in high school yet.
No.
What was the progression then of your career from?
Well, you know what happened? When I was in junior high, I remember Don Gunderson was the high school choir director at the high school in Centerville. And Don had just been there like 1 or 2 years. And he heard about me, and maybe as a result of this talent program, I'm not exactly sure. But he did something that had never been done in Centerville. He invited someone in junior high school to come over and sing in the high school choir, chorus as we call it. And I think even then I probably was not aware of the significance of that. But nonetheless, I went over, and so the principal of the junior high school allowed me to go over that for that one period, as we call them in those days, and sing with the high school choir. And so I did that for 2 years from junior high, and when I got into high school, of course, I was already in the choir. So that was a moving experience, and it could have perhaps been related somewhat to the fact that I had received this recognition from Bill Riley.
Were you very isolated in were you, say, the only black person in the choir then, or were there
I had a sister. One of my sisters was in the choir, but other than my sister, I was the only one. And then sometimes when I was in high school, I was the only African American or black person. In those days, we were called colored.
Yes.
I was the only colored person in the choir. But there were certainly problems of discrimination in Centerville, Iowa, and I love Centerville. I'm still dedicated to Centerville, but Centerville was no different than any other city in the state of Iowa or in the United States, as a matter of fact. So there were a number of things that coloreds, we couldn't go in the swimming pool. We couldn't sit downstairs, you know, with white kids, or white people. But progress was made shortly during my time in high school.
Well, from high school in Centerville, then you went to the University of Iowa.
Right, yes.
And your talent obviously was being recognized as you moved along the way.
I'd have to say Charles Kellis, who was a voice teacher at the University of Iowa. He is the man who discovered me and discovered the gift that God had given me to sing opera, because I didn't know anything about opera. And so that took place at the University of Iowa, and he's the man who directed me also at the Juilliard School of Music, and I'd have to say is responsible for my being here right now probably today.
And then, so the steps along the way, your operatic debut was in Berlin.
Yes, in Berlin at the Deutsche Oper, right, in 1965.
And then the Metropolitan in 82.
Right, yes. I've sung at all the major opera houses in the world. In this country, United States, we'd say the Metropolitan Opera, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, Philadelphia, Seattle, Portland, all of these houses. And around the world, all the major opera houses, like in Vienna, Austria, Zurich, Switzerland, Geneva, Hamburg, Germany, Berlin, Germany, Munich, Germany, Paris, France, London, Sydney, Australia, a house out in Australia, in Spain, Barcelona, Madrid. I could go on and on and on, but I've sung in all the major opera houses.
We're very aware of and very proud of the fact that you are here in the role that you're in at Wartburg College, of course.
So am I.
Well, a serendipitous situation. Now, let me. You referred to a later episode in your life and Bill's life. It would have been much later. As you know, he moved his Talent Scouts program to the Iowa State Fair.
Yes.
And on the, I believe it was the 50th anniversary of his involvement with the fair, there was an honorary event for him. And I'd like to play the next excerpt from the tape in which he speaks about what happened there.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the great things when you go through life, as you, Grant, and all of us who have been in this business all our lives, the rewarding things happen as the years go by. Because as I was celebrating my 50th year at the Iowa State Fair recently, a few years ago, Simon Estes came from Frankfurt, Germany, where he was performing, came to Des Moines to be at the fair, to honor me as, I mean, what else can a guy do for another guy?
Wonderful.
And I'll tell you, being an Irishman, you didn't, I never cried so much in my life.
Dr. Estes, obviously a very emotional experience for Bill. How significant was that in your experience, being there, honoring him?
The significance was the fact that I was recognizing a man who judged a person on their character and their gifts and not on their skin color. Because, again, I don't want to labor that point, but in that period of time, in 1950, there were definitely problems. And Bill Riley was a man, as I stated before, of character. And so I was honored in order to be able to be there with him. Even though he said he was honored, I think it was a mutual situation because for 50 years he had been associated with the Iowa State Fair. He had done so much for Iowa and for young people of different types of talents that I was deeply honored, and I made a special trip to fly back here from Frankfurt, Germany. I was there doing the Flying Dutchman, as I recall. But I flew back here to be with Bill and to honor him on that day because I think he's a great human being, humanitarian, and a great Iowan.
I remember from the interview with Bill that he said the lady who played the accompaniment for your performance, that first performance in Centerville, was there to play with you. I believe you sang Old Man River.
Yes, yes, yes. I think it was Barbara Bradley. She was, her name is now Barbara Cortesio. Her husband's a very fine lawyer, and they both live in Des Moines, Iowa. But Barbara used to play the piano for me when I was in high school, and I asked her to play for that because she had already played for me one other time many years before, many decades before, for the Bill Riley Talent Show.
Well, let's go back to the tape now and pick up Bill's reaction when something else happened in this experience.
After he sang Old Man River and Blow Your Socks Off, then he said, I want to sing one, and he said many wonderful words about our association, the fact that I was the first, in his words, the first to recognize that there was talent there, certainly on a statewide basis. His teachers and all knew. And he said, I would like to sing a song, and I'm sitting back there with the State Fair board members, Ann Riley, wonderful Ann beside me. And he said, I want to sing a song just for you, Bill, because you've taught children to do what I, Simon Estes, has had to do. And everyone has to do, and you've had to do, and that is, you have mountains you have to climb. Regardless, nobody is at the peak. Nobody maybe makes the peak, but we all have to climb mountains. And so I want to just sing Climb Every Mountain for you, Bill. Well, here's this thousands of people, Simon, the piano, we're sitting here, and he starts singing, and I'm just loving it to the audience. But he turned his back on the audience, came right over to me, and as near as Grant is, as you are to me, he sang Climb Every Mountain. And I'm just going, boy,
Well, again, very emotional for Bill, but the application here of what he had done to encourage children, and certainly that's something that you have emulated in your life experience with the foundations that you've established for scholarships and so on.
Well, I tell you, Bill Riley is a man that we know he lives in Iowa as well as I believe it is out in Arizona or someplace, but he always comes back to Iowa, and I always come back to Iowa. And I come back here because my roots were here originally. They're still here. And I have a great interest, obviously, in young people because, as you've stated, my involvement in providing funds to help young people. And I'm thrilled to be on the Wartburg campus teaching here. As you well know, too, I'm also teaching at Iowa State University. Right. But I'm very happy to be at Wartburg. I think it's a great college. The president, Jack Olay, as I call him, is a wonderful humanitarian, a wonderful educator, a wonderful president, a wonderful human being. a wonderful hands-on president of this college, and that's one of the reasons I'm here, because of the wonderful religious foundation that this school has. And so once again, it's amazing how life goes in circles many times, but Bill Riley and I go around the world and come back to Iowa, and I'm happy to, you know, after 50 years, that's half a century, to honor this man. But still, Bill Riley was interested in young people. I'm interested in young people, young talent. He's interested in the talents of performing of young people. I too, but I'm also interested in talent for students who are interested in education and acquiring and attaining knowledge.
And sharing your experiences with them obviously is a great treasure for everyone who has the opportunity to take advantage of it, and that really is all of us here in the community, and we're very, very grateful for that, and grateful the fact that for you and your wife are making your home here.
Thank you.
And now you're off to Switzerland and to Spain, and then
Yes.
back to Waverly, right?
I'll be in Switzerland and Spain, and 3 different cities in Spain all of next week, and I arrive in Europe on the 20th, and on the 30th I'm back here, so it'll be a busy time.
Well, Godspeed and good traveling to you, Dr. Estes, and thank you very much for a very gracious interview.
Thank you very much, Professor Grant, I shall call you.
All right, thank you.